We are live, and John, you may begin whenever you're ready. John, I'm sorry, you're still muted.
Good evening and welcome to the July 22nd, 2021 regular meeting of the Reston Association Board of Directors. I'm John Mooney, RA's Vice President. President Anton is away on business, so I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. Also, Director Mulcairn has indicated that he cannot be here, so we will have only 7 board members present, but 6 is sufficient for a quorum, so I'll now call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the July 22nd agenda. And that is a bit complicated tonight. I will be requesting a motion to make 4 changes in the agenda. Here they are and the reasons for proposing them. Item C2 in the consent agenda is proposed to be removed from the consent agenda and relocated after item P, which is the executive session on personnel matters, because we became aware that C2's current motion was to appoint 2 co-chairs, something not permitted by our committee resolution 2, which permits only a chair and a vice chair. So we need to sort that out in the executive session in item P before we vote on it. There are 3 other regular items that are proposed to be removed. Item I, the EAC litter project team report. The chair of the EAC, Doug Britt, has asked that this be removed and then considered in September. Item L, the board and association operations resolution 14, CEO emergency powers. I am proposing this removal in my capacity as chair of the BGC. As those who attended the July 1st BGC meeting will remember, I resisted and then only reluctantly agreed to hold a vote on this important resolution because one member of the BGC was absent. Tonight we have 2 members of the board absent, including the president and Tom Mulcairn. And I believe this is too consequential a resolution to be voted on without the full board or the near full board. And then finally, item N, Pool's budget presentation. Fiscal Chair Dave Kerr has asked that this be removed and considered at the August 19th board budget session. So with that background, I would ask for a director to move the following motion. Prepared by Tony. Move to amend the agenda to remove volunteer appointments from the consent calendar and place them immediately following item P, and to remove items I, L, and M. Would someone make that motion?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. Any discussion?
John.
Yes.
I just want to, I will vote for the changes, but I just want to comment that we're notified of things that will be voted on or the agenda prior to the meeting. And if I were, say, absent from a meeting, I would be happy to send my thoughts on something beforehand to the board. And so I think that in order to continue to conduct RA business, our goal should always be to bring matters forward when they're ready and to take votes on them. And I would just hope that you guys know that I would respect if you voted on something when I had to be absent from a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other comments from the board? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Thank you very much. Let me just make a note of that. Okay. Now, I would ask for a motion, or I would ask for a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Aye.
I,
Was there a discussion, Tim?
No, no.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes. Thank you very much. The next item is to adopt the amended consent calendar. So that is the consent calendar with item 2, volunteer appointments, deferred to later in the meeting. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Sure. Why not? Yep. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Our next item then is member comments. And I believe, Christina, we have only one who's identified herself prior to the meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct. Liz Badley is signed up, and I just unmuted you, Liz.
Thank you so much. All right. So my name is Liz Badley of 11294 Silentwood Lane. And I wanted to make a couple of member comments in response to the meeting on the budget and specifically about the pools. So I'm so excited that I get to help work on solving these problems. So first, I have to say, I rent 2 facilities and I'm fresh off a swim at GCI. I rent 2 facilities for my business. They are super clean. The lifeguards are amazing. And I have been beyond pleased with how aquatic staff has handled this summer. I am frequently at 4 or 5 different pools and it's the same. So just beyond impressed. And if anybody knows me, like I'm picky when it comes to pools. So I'm like, to impress me is tough. So bravo. So I wanted to start off with that. So the second thing that I wanted to really comment on is the idea of non-lifeguarded facilities. I have to say that as someone who's been in aquatics for 24 years, who's a Red Cross lifeguard instructor, and works to train lifeguards and has 10 years experience working at Reston Association pools when there have been staffing shortages, it is very, very difficult to even run a pool safely when you are short on staff. If we were to go to non-lifeguarded pools, sure, it seems like it's going to save money on staffing. It's going to give members something that they want, but it opens us up to all this liability. And let's say there's no liability. The pools are then going to get dirtier. So then we're going to need to hire a cleaning company and it's a vicious cycle. So I would really strongly suggest that just be, looked at and pushed aside. It's just not safe. When we're talking about those swim at your own risk pools, generally they're only 4 feet deep. They're very small. And when they're at hotels, there's office staff nearby. So it's just, it's really something that, Reston has been so lucky to have no drowning deaths. And really just to keep that up, it would be incredible. And the stat is that on your millionth customer, you'll have a drowning death. And Reston, as far as I know, association has had 0 and we're well over 1 million. We were over 1 million in the 90s. So so I just really want to say that it's going to cause more heartache than it benefit. But I think that there are solutions that can get more pools open for members and that we can get hours extended and we can meet the needs of the members. So I'm excited to help share those solutions through PRAC, and then, happy to have a call with Laura if she wants to talk about ideas to run through the board. Now, The next thing that I would like to make a comment on is,
Liz, I'm so sorry. That's 3 minutes.
darn it, I was hoping for 5. All right, I have
Can you
one.
wrap it up real quickly, please?
Okay, really, really quick. There are a lot of children at Golf Course Island who live in Golf Course Island, but have spent a lot of money on guest passes because they don't know how to get pool passes. Their families don't know how to get them. And this comes directly from the lifeguards that I was talking to tonight. And that's a huge equity issue that we need to figure out how to get pool passes into the hands of children that are Reston residents and their parents don't know how to access. If that's something that we can look at. And then the last tiny little thing is in the budget meeting, getting all staff up to $15 an hour. I did a quick calculation, will cost each member 62 cents. And so we ought to look at doing that quicker.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for letting me go over.
Are there any other member comments? I see Erwin's hand. Erwin?
Good evening. My name is Erwin Flashman. I live at 1327 Buttermilk Lane. I was going to comment today on more than just one item, but since you have removed the emergency powers for the CEO from the agenda, I will leave that for later, whenever that is addressed. The item I do wish to address this evening is the issue of the withholding of funds for the repair of certain swimming pools. And I would like to just point out that the board is the only entity authorized to make adjustments to the budget. A budget is passed, and through that, the board makes authoritative distribution of limited resources for various purposes. And the board made a decision to authorize the repair of 2 pools. And the CEO has notified as of June, the last June board meeting, that he is withholding the money for those repairs. By doing so, he has taken it upon himself without board authority to do so. And by doing that, it has resulted in those pools remaining closed. So they will remain closed for this summer. Another action that has not been authorized by the board. And in order to change the board's decision with regard to the budget and the spending that it is authorized and really commanded to be done, is a 2/3 vote of the board is required. That has not taken place. And so I am somewhat mystified as to how the board can allow this situation to persist. On the one hand, the board has given orders that they are to be, and obviously when the board gives orders, they are to be obeyed. And yet the CEO is saying, no, I'm not going to spend the money. And he may have a legitimate reason or not, but it's not his decision. It is the board's decision, and it is the exclusive decision of the board. And so therefore, the board and the CEO find themselves in a position that may be uncomfortable, but it is the board's duty to resolve that, and as quickly as possible. And in my judgment, the CEO should have, as soon as he was aware of this purported difficulty or concern, should have notified the board immediately so that the board could take reasonable action. Notifying in June, at the end of June, in a board meeting is much too late for adequate action to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Erwin. I'm sure we will consider pool repairs when we talk about the capital budget on August 19th. Thank you. Any other member comments? Okay, thank you very much. Then we'll move to item E, the common interest complaint of Erwin Flashman. Tony, do you want to give us an introduction to this?
Okay. This is a complaint filed by Mr. Flashman, challenging the status of the Director of IT as a member for the purpose of total membership on the IT committee. Mr. Flashman properly brought the complaint pursuant to, I believe it is Resolution 4. And this is basically the first step in a process that may ultimately resolve with Mr. Flashman taking his complaint to the Ombudsman for her ruling on the matter. The relevant resolution is devoid and something that I plan on bringing to the BGC of a procedure to handle this type of hearing. In the interest of time, I have recommended that we adopt the procedure that is used for Covenants Committee complaints, which would afford Mr. Flashman 5 minutes to present his complaint. Obviously, the board, as the arbiter, would be able to make inquiries to Mr. Flashman as to his complaint. We would then adjourn to executive session, where I would to consult with legal counsel, me, and then the board would make a decision as to whether to enter a final decision affirming Mr. Flashman's complaint or denying Mr. Flashman's complaint. And then, of course, we would need to send him official notice in accordance with POA.
Thank you, Tony. So I would entertain a motion from the board to establish and follow the procedure, 3-step procedure just identified by Tony, namely Mr. Flashman has 5 minutes to address the board, and board members may ask him questions. Secondly, the board will then convene into executive session to discuss this with counsel, and then the board will exit executive session and vote on Mr. Flashman's complaint. Do I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor, please vote aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sarah, you're voting against? Okay. Any abstention?
I voted aye.
Pardon me?
I voted aye.
You voted aye. Okay. And any opposed? Mike, you're opposed? Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. So the motion passes. I would now entertain a motion to convene in executive session to consult with counsel and also to discuss violation matters.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I believe that's premature. The motion was passed, afforded Mr. Flashman 5 minutes to address the board.
Oh, of course. Yes, of course. Okay. We like quick meetings, but we can't make it quick.
The
Okay.
board has a
everyone.
habit of overlooking procedures. I must say that the procedures are important.
They are indeed. Thank you, Erwin. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I filed this following a decision by the board that only 5 positions were open to be filled by volunteers for the IT committee, when I understood, and it was for me clear, that they had to be 6 members appointed because there were 6 slots still open, since the appointment of the director of IT was ex officio and specifically non-voting, and therefore could not be considered to be a full member of the committee, and therefore could not also be a part of the quorum. And there was a necessity of having a quorum and the full voting member in order to be counted for quorum and for the purposes of determining the number of voting members who would be allowed to participate. Subsequently, after my filing of the complaint, the board in its June 24th meeting amended that section of the IT committee's composition, section 3 of that, and voted to provide for 7 voting members of the IT committee, and thereby, I believe, remedied the situation and modified the resolution. That is the resolution creating the IT committee. And that those minutes have been ratified and accepted, confirmed this evening in the matters that were attended to by the board just prior to this presentation. And so I am quite willing and do hereby withdraw my complaint, because I feel that the matter has been resolved and no longer requires any further action in order to achieve the ends. I had tried to advise that this would be my course of action once the minutes were approved to the chair of the board, to the chair of the BOC when it was considering the agenda for this meeting. However, the chair did not want to recognize me, and so I was faced with just having to leave it here. I do want to comment on one item, and that is that it's an item that goes beyond the scope of this complaint, and that is that item 20 of the BGC proposed work plan would address some of the issues that were also attendant to this issue. And that is the question of how you treat an ex officio non-voting member of committees, and also how you treat the board appointed liaisons to the advisory committees. And I addressed some of those issues in my complaint, and so I commend you to take a careful look at that as well. And so, having formally withdrawn my complaint, I wish you good evening.
Thank you, Erwin. Okay. So we still have a item F, which is executive session. So it's now time to do that, not before, but now, to discuss contractual matters, violation matters, and possible consultations with counsel. Do we?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, point of order, there are no contractual matters that I am aware of.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So do we have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss violation matters and for consultation with counsel?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So we will go into executive session. Thanks. Okay. We are back from executive session, and I would like a member of the board to make a motion that the Reston Association Board of Directors certifies to the best of each member's knowledge that only those matters appropriate for executive session of a violation nature or consultation with counsel were discussed or considered by the board during executive session. Could I please have a motion to that effect?
So move.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Next, I would ask for a motion to ratify and approve the decision reached in executive session to adopt the July Legal Committee report and affirm the decisions reached. Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? One opposition. Thank you, Aaron. Motion passes. Next, I would like to make a motion that the Board of Directors charge the Board Governance Committee to come up with a policy for dealing with issues of harassment of members, especially on Reston Association property. Would someone second that motion or make that motion?
So move.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Tim. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the motion passes with one abstention. Thank you, Mike. Okay.
One nay.
John, I was a nay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
One nay.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Okay. The next
John,
item is the treasurer's report.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Chair, I believe I heard Director Bertreen move to ratify and approve the decision reached in executive session to direct the CEO to take the actions discussed in executive session as it pertains to a no trespass letter and contact Cornerstones as appropriate. Pretty sure I heard him say that.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you for your better hearing. Okay. Now, item G, the treasurer's report.
Okay, I'll be with you in just a second. Okay. Okay. Tonight we're going to just, we have generated a new report to reflect the association's cash position. Since we recognize revenue on an accrual basis as opposed to a cash basis, we thought the fiscal committee thought it would be helpful and educational to discuss or point out to the members our cash position. And the first report that I hope I have up here on the screen is sources and uses of cash statement. The top number is the cash at the end of May. And the first half of the report are the additions to cash that were generated during the course of the month. The lower half of the report discusses or points out the additional expenses that were generated by cost center. One area that is probably not very well defined, it hasn't been defined, is overhead. And those are the cost centers where there is generally no income to them over the course of the year. So we consolidated those into one item so to keep the report as compact as possible. So at the beginning of the month, we had 19,874,000 and change in cash, and at the end of the month, it has declined to 19,252,000 and change. In the lower left-hand corner of the report, you can see the composition of the cash. So there is operating cash of 8.7 million, investments, in other words, money that we have not allocated to reserves that are in interest earning accounts, and 4.1 million in investment accounts for the RRF, the replacement repair fund, and CARF, the new acquisitions. Going on to the second page, this is the accounts receivable. These are, because we report our results on an accrual basis, we recognize certain items as income before they are actually received because they have been earned. And the reason that I think this is a useful report is that you see on a month-over-month basis, the largest single item, which is the collection of the current year's assessments. And we can see that over the past month, we have decreased the number of assessments owed for 2021 by 75, and we have collected about $77,000 in funds owed us. The last two pages in the report itself, these pages were, the last two pages are combined. I've separated them just for convenience. And I think it shows in a very highly summarized way. On the revenue side, revenues are up a little bit over that which was budgeted for the first half of 2021. Recreational service revenue has rebounded nicely from the COVID year 2020. We're up about a little over 52,000 or 3.5%. And other non-assessment revenues increased substantially over budget. On the operating expense side, operating expenses associated with recreational services have a positive variance. They're 320,000 under budget, or 18%. In total, operating expenses are almost 900,000 under budget, or 11%. Salaries and benefits are 401,000 below budget due to fewer seasonal hires and selected hiring deferrals, but that is offset by higher than expected overtime for lifeguards and pool staff. The last item that I'd like to refer to is a summary of the fiscal committee, the most recent fiscal committee meeting. Fiscal thought it would be very useful to inform the members on the the actions of and discussions at fiscal committee. This past meeting, we reviewed the insurance binder. We noted that insurance is going to be a significant factor in our expenses going forward, and we must look to ideas and opportunities to balance risk mitigation and costs going forward. Secondly, our investment advisor, RAFA and Financial Advisors, conducted a survey on the fiscal committee and board members' attitudes towards changing our investment strategies. Currently, that investment strategy was last reviewed in 2014, and RAFA recommended that we increase the split from a 50-50% split between equities or stocks and fixed income or bonds to a 60-40 split. The committee unanimously agreed with this change and hope that the board will be able to discuss and approve this change as soon as possible. The committee noted, based on a review of year-to-date financials, we have very promising revenue as an expense position. We also discussed recommendations for the biennial budget for CARF, our acquisition of new assets, as well as the major renovations that we expect in the coming years. Our CEO, Hank Litch, took us through a list of operating expense recommendations for 2022 and 2023, which he also discussed with the board on Monday evening during our working session. Fiscal felt it was important for staff to identify those items that staff felt particularly strongly in favor of. And finally, in anticipation of our joint meeting with Fiscal's joint meeting with the board of directors on August 19th, that Fiscal is going to hold a special meeting on Monday, August 9th, to prepare for the joint meeting. And that's the end of my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Bob. Very clear. Jennifer.
I would like to direct everyone to page 72 of the board packet, or number 2 of the fiscal report that Bob just gave us, and motion to direct staff to update the assessment and finance resolution number 6 to comply with the recommendations from our investment advisor, RAFA. And also note that our fiscal committee is in concurrence with those recommendations. So I would like to see that assessment updated immediately. Not assessment, the resolution updated immediately.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I second the motion.
Okay. Is there discussion?
Let me say that the 50-50 split that is now in the resolution, there are parameters, high-low parameters, and we are close to the 60-40 split now, which is still within policy. And this would formalize the change in the resolution would permit us to continue to keep the investments that we have, which are very favorable, consistent with current and expected market conditions. It is not a major shift in the investment philosophy, or it would not necessitate at this juncture any movement of funds into or out of any particular position. This would just give our investment advisors a bit more flexibility to make the money work for us.
Okay. Any other questions? I guess, Tony, I have a question about how we actually effect this change. Do we direct staff to bring us a revised Resolution 6 incorporating this change? Or can we by motion now, make that change to Resolution 6?
Do it by motion now and make that change, and then it'll just be memorialized when Tina and I get it figured out and she'll get it executed.
Okay.
John, may I? The only change that was proposed by Rafa in the policy was to change the wording around the investment parameters, the split, the allocation of funds. It probably, if I remember correctly, it's like a total of 6 different numbers, but it reflects, it's very consistent with the previous statement, but it does update the allocation to a 60-40 split.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I have a question and a comment. So Bob, I'm a little confused by your explanation. Does the resolution as it stands prohibit us from investing as advised? Or are we just up against one side of our parameters?
The latter. We're up against one side of the parameters. The
Right.
parameters now are a 50-50 target allocation, but there is the ability to have a range of investments with those targets. And I believe we're at 58-42 now. And it's not because we've changed investments. In fact, the investments have stayed, at least over the last year that I've been tracking them, the same. It's just that the market has been much more favorable to equities than fixed income. And this provides us, by moving the center point, it also moves the ranges so that it gives our investment advisors more flexibility to take advantages of opportunities going forward. And it also avoids for us to have to take gains in equity positions and then reinvest them in fixed income in what may only be a very short period of time. It's not a substantial change in direction or in application of the policy.
So my comment would be, I would much prefer to see the changes, to see the red line version of the resolution, and then put kind of direction-y language and hope it turns out right if we were making substantial changes. I'm in favor of the direction we're headed, but I don't think we're up against a critical timeline. So I would be voting against this particular one.
Jennifer?
The amended resolution is in the fiscal committee packet, and we could certainly get that into the board's hands officially. The reason that I am making the motion is because we do not have a September meeting, and the investment advisor said that we're so close to the parameters that it's very likely before our September meeting we would hit our high points, and they legally then would have to rebalance us to a 50-50 split, even though our their recommendation is to go to a 60-40 split with parameters on each side of the 60-40. So that's why I brought it to our attention now. Our other option could be that we wait until the day in August, that assuming the markets, stay where they are, the day in August that Tom Deal gets the phone call from our investment advisor, that he's going to have to rebalance, and then we could do unanimous consent. I just thought it was more appropriate to have it in an open meeting.
Tim?
If we shift to 60-40 split as recommended, how high do the parameters go?
I'm looking for that right now. I thought it was in the package, but it was in a separate file. You hold on just a second, I'll get that for you. It's a reasonable question. I'm sorry, I thought I had Rafa's. I know I have it. I just, at the moment, I cannot find the proposed changes to the
Can we
to the
ask Tom?
resolution.
Can we please ask Tom Deal, because he's been working with Rafa?
Bob, do you want the redlined resolution?
Yes, please.
I'll email it to you right now.
And Tom, can you report the answer to the question that Tim asked? The ranges, how much are the ranges between 60-40? How many points on either side of 60-40?
Tom, are you working on Jennifer's question? Tom Deal?
Right now, I was in the middle of emailing Bob.
Sorry. Okay.
I'm sorry. Bob, I sent you both of those reports, the one from Rafa and the red line resolution 6.
Thank you.
To your Gmail account.
Gotten so used to having everything instantaneously when it takes 2 minutes. It's very frustrating. I apologize for the delay.
Tom, as we're waiting for Bob to get that and show it on screen, can you answer Jennifer's question about the parameters of the proposed new 60-40 split? Or is that best seen in the red line version of the resolution that you've sent Bob?
Yeah, it's best if Bob pulls up the resolution because it details it out on the on there.
And Tom, you have co-host rights. I believe you could bring it up if you sent it to him. You probably have it.
I've got it.
You do. Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you see that? It is the red line version. On equity, the minimum percentage would be 48%, with the target being 60% and the maximum being 72%. Fixed income would go from 40% to 32%. The target would go from 50 to 40, and the maximum would go from 60% down to 48%. And right now, if memory serves me correctly, I think we're at 58-42. I will send to all the board members. I'm speeding through this, but I don't recall any other changes to the investment resolution other than the changes requested by Rafa. And my quick.
That is correct.
So does that, I didn't intend to spring this on people tonight, but here we are. We can, is there any other information that people would want?
Aaron, do you have any reactions to this new information or any further questions?
Yeah, thank you for presenting this. This satisfies my desire to see what the impact on the resolution would be, and so I feel empowered to support this at this point. I'm glad you were able to show this.
Okay.
Again, I apologize for being fumbling around trying to find the resolution.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Those in favor of changing our targets as indicated on this? Yes, Bob.
No.
Oh,
I was just anticipating.
Okay, those in favor of changing the investment targets as indicated in this table, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I can't, let's see, because of the, is anyone opposed?
No.
Is anyone abstaining? The motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Jennifer, for bringing the timeliness issue to our attention.
Yes, and I apologize too. I should have had that up to show you guys.
Okay. All right, Bob, are you finished with the treasurer's report?
I am done.
Let's now move to item H, the cluster outreach update. Cam, I assume that's you?
It is me, and the format has changed a little bit. So I guess I am happy to answer any questions that the board members have about the information in the package.
I found it very clear. Any questions from the board? Yes, Tim. Tim, you're muted.
Thank you. Cam, your materials indicate that the proposed revisions on the EV charging station guidelines were presented to the DRB on July 20th. Can you give us an update?
Sure,
What-
absolutely.
As to what happened at that meeting?
Sure. So the DRB was presented a draft guideline for electric vehicle charging stations for all properties within Reston Association. So that would include the commercial aspects as well as the residential and multifamily units that we have. And the DRB was very receptive to the draft guideline. They had a couple of comments specifically about gang installations and whether or not we should be directing people to install these charging stations if they have the ability to install them in their garages or in their carports or not. And then there was a question related to consulting with legal counsel to ensure that everything was kind of above board and good guidance that the DRB could have. So we will be bringing that design guideline draft back to the DRB in August at their August full board meeting for approval for the draft to move forward to the board operations committee in September to follow the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, we will thank you, Cam. You don't need you don't need any action from us today, do you?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for the report and all the good work that you and your staff are doing.
And just a little shout out, if I could, John, the RA News will have this Friday. So tomorrow we'll have a great video from the Covenants Department about how to find information related to the DRB and covenants.
Thank you. Okay. We move now to item, we skip item I, which is deferred until September. We move to item J, EAC Invasive Species Report, and our man on the environment, Doug Britt. Doug, take it away.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, you've got such a big agenda here tonight. I'm going to try to make this fast. And I think you all have seen the report that was in the packet on best management practices for invasive plant species. So let me give you a quick overview of it and end it with our ask for the board. Can I have the first slide? So the project was initiated by the EAC with a 7-person project team. Sarah D'Souza led the team, herding the cats. I want to also call out the names are here. Inez Nedelkovic and Sarika Sridhar, Iman Hajabasi, and myself, William Pegius, Barry Steinberg, Katie Shaw, and Brian Cahart. I want to call out though for Sarika. I don't know if she's on this call or Zoom or not, but she did a lot of the coordination of the layout and incorporating the comments while in the process of moving to New Zealand. So appreciate all that effort. Next slide. As background, the 2020 RACER report identified invasive plants as a major threat to Reston's iconic urban forests and natural areas. And current development, redevelopment, overbrowsing by deer, and climate change are among the leading factors promoting the spread of invasive plants here in Reston. The problem is widespread and doesn't recognize property boundaries, and it requires action by everyone, governments, businesses, homeowners, clusters, to control the spread effectively. So the major purpose of putting this report together is fivefold. First, to educate homeowners and clusters in how to deal and identify, excuse me, how to identify and remove and control the most problematic invasive plants we have here in Reston, to identify the best management practices for avoiding their establishment and the spread, and to provide information on grants and other funding sources that are available to private homeowners and cluster associations to manage invasive species on their properties, to list additional resources and reference materials with hyperlinks to those, and to provide Reston Association, county, and state contact information for residents seeking help in this area. The general principles to reduce the impact of invasive plants involve several actions: identify the invasive plants and incorporate their management into a land use plan, prevent the introduction of invasive plants to uninfested sites, contain and treat new invasive plants or those not yet well established, and minimize the transport of those from infested to uninfested areas. Use weed-free soil, fill, and mulch in construction projects, and monitor those sites where potentially infested materials have been used. Minimize soil disturbance to the extent possible, and finally, maintain desirable native species to slow the establishment of foreign invasive plants. Next slide, please. The report that you have ends with plant profiles and best control methods for 9 of the most problematic species we have here in Reston. Those include the autumn olive, bush honeysuckle, Japanese honeysuckle, English ivy, exotic bamboo, Japanese stiltgrass, mile-a-minute vines, multiflora rose, and porcelain berry. So each of these profiles describes and has pictures of the seeds and leaves and descriptions of the roots and other problem aspects of the plants to help with easy identification. It identifies the major mechanical, chemical, or biological controls that could be used to control their spread and to eliminate them. And it provides information on what kind of native plants you can use to replace these invasives in your yard or property. So with that, next, our ask is simple and threefold. We request the board to approve the EAC's report on best management practices for invasive plants for public distribution. We ask that you place the document on the RA Nature and Environmental Overview website as a reference for all Reston residents. And thirdly, consider presenting it as an educational topic. For example, possibly as a short RA video or as a topic of one of RA Covenant's administration's cluster meet and greet outreach programs or other community venues where you think this would be an interesting topic. So that's our ask, and open to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Doug, for the excellent work and the excellent report. Are there any questions? Could we have a motion to adopt the threefold motion that Doug has just proposed to us?
I'll make a motion with one small minor adjustment, Doug, if you're okay. The point 3, can I just change the first word to approve? Will you be okay with that?
Sure.
Instead of consider, can I say approve presenting it?
Sure.
I'll make the motion. Okay.
So that would read, therefore, Sarah, can approve the document as an educational topic? Is that what you mean?
Yep.
Approve presenting as an educational topic.
Okay. Okay. With that friendly amendment, with that motion from Sarah, is there a second? Bob, was that you?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Tim?
You're on mute.
Tim, you're on mute. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you. As amended, I read number 3 as still leaving some discretion with Reston Association staff to decide how best to make that educational effort. And with that understanding, I fully support the motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mike Collins, are you? Yes, you're with us. Did you vote, Mike?
Oh, yeah, I voted yes.
Okay, thank you. So it's unanimous. Thank you very much, board. Thank you very much, Doug and EAC and all who worked on this.
Thank you. Appreciate it, board. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Bob.
We have removed item I, or pardon me, we have removed, no, I'm next. Item K, land use update. Please, Christina, could you put the PowerPoint up?
Did Sarah want to change the read from what to what?
You know, it's her. I was trying to be cautious.
Doug, just so you know, you are live here.
I muted him, John. Good.
Okay. Okay. So this is the update on the Reston land use issues. Let's go to the next page. We'll be reporting on 2 things: the July 20th DRB hearing on the revised Reston Town Center North concept plan, and also then on the Reston Comprehensive Plan Revision Update. So I will quickly go through just 3 slides, 3, 4, and 5, and then ask Larry and Jennifer whether they want to add any comments. And I will point out that for those interested in some of the background and some comp plan contact information, there are more detailed slides included at the end of the PowerPoint, which are available to anyone with access to tonight's board package. So very quickly, the announced topic, the announced scope of the DRB's July 20th meeting was focused on streets and open space and the general configuration of the various blocks. I will point out that there was general agreement from the Reston Comprehensive Plan Task Force with that. And there was community support stated at the meeting. And indeed, the DRB did approve that at the meeting. So the layout of streets and open space seemed much more reasonable to everyone. Beyond July 20th, however, concerns remain about making sure civic facilities, whether open space or buildings, and the number of residential units. So, for example, on residential units, Inova Fairfax County are proposing 2,460 new multifamily residential units at a rate of 50 units per acre. The Comp Plan Task Force draft, which has not been fully vetted in the task force, has suggested a much smaller number, as you can see, 984 multifamily units at 20 units per acre. RA has not taken a position on this, and indeed we've not fully completed in the task force our land use discussion on this or any other thing. The next slide, please. The task force process, we are indeed speeding up. However, we're not going to finish by August. So we had our last meeting on July 21st. Our next one is on July 26th. Then there will be a break for the entire month of August. we will take up work again in September. And again, the comp plan process is the task force will approve its draft, and then county staff will review it. Supervisor Alcorn is going to have a community outreach process with the community. Then it will go to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, though no dates have been set for those later events. That is basically, well, one more page, please, one more slide. The big things coming up most quickly are the land use, as I indicated. So major decisions that need to be made on Reston Town Center North, the Village Center, St. John's Woods, and so forth. And all of these decisions will have a direct impact on One Reston's overall population, which, as we've indicated in previous meetings, is currently, that this is not Reston Association, but quote, One Reston. It's about 70,000. And depending on whether we maximize the residential units permitted, not we, but developers are permitted to maximize residential scenarios as allowed in the comprehensive plan, current comprehensive plan, or if they choose to maximize non-residential scenarios, the residential scenario would increase the present population by 125%, up to 158,000. If the non-residential scenario is followed, that would be an 82% increase over the current number, or a total of 128,000 people. So these land use questions are very, very important because land use densities drive a population. The transportation, we will probably we will approve our substantially completed version, not on July 21st, that didn't happen, but rather on July 26th. And other important issues and chapters that are coming are energy and environment, heritage resources, public art, community health, public facilities, economic development, parks, rec, and open space, equity, and housing. And also in process, much more at a beginning stage, are stormwater, water resources, tree canopy, green buildings, and noise. So those are the issues that we're dealing with. Next meeting is going to be very important because of both transportation and land use. Any comments or corrections, Jennifer and Larry?
No, I think he did a good job covering it in short, concise fashion.
Jennifer?
Yes, I think you did a good job, but I do think this was supposed to be informational, so it was supposed to be a question only. But it's a good reminder and good information for the community to have. I do think that in the future it would be incumbent upon us that are working on land use issues to bring to the board some requests for approval on land use positions that we're taking. And we had a missed opportunity this past week because of the RTCN went to the DRB, and we could have taken that opportunity, and apologize that we failed you on that. But Larry did do a good job with speaking at that meeting and giving Ari's kind of historical view on the conceptual plans for RTCN. But the official positions certainly will go in the comprehensive plan, and look forward to bringing you guys some positions that the board can take.
Thank you, Jennifer. Sarah, you had a question.
I'll let Bob go first. I think Bob had his hand up, and then I'll ask my question.
Okay.
If I recall correctly, the DRB approved the conceptual piece that came before DRB on Tuesday, correct?
Correct.
And that was essentially to increase one section of open space that had previously been 2.5 acres to 3.2 acres.
Correct.
And to change the street connections or routing a bit. One of the issues on your slides in terms of density is that RA has not taken a position yet. What is your current thinking on the issue of density? Since the PRC, there are only a limited number of areas within the PRC that DRB can affect.
So I'll jump in on this one, John and Jennifer. So the question really is the entitlement plans that were originally submitted about 2 or 3 years ago by Inova in Fairfax County had 50 units per acre across the whole land base, call it 47 acres and so forth. And the current comp plan says there should be a minimum of 1,000 units. Doesn't say where they're going to be or anything. In the comp plan task force discussion, the general sense is that give Inova the density for the residential units so that the county property can then be for the public facilities, the rec center, the library, the shelter, human services, the ball field, civic space, etc. So I think there's a fair amount of discussion that needs to happen with respect to what that density is. The draft that is circulating amongst the task force right now limits the Inova to 20 units per acre. And I will only speak for myself right now. I think that is somewhat limiting on the Inova site. If we're going to concentrate the residential development in Reston Town Center North, close to the spectrum, and transitioning from, Town Center proper to the south to the north, I'm not convinced that 20 units per acre is the right number. I don't know what the right number is, but it seems fairly low for a rather urban complex if you're going to concentrate all of that on 1/2 of that 40 plus acres. So I think there's a lot of discussion left. And I, for one, am really curious of what the county staff's going to come back with once they get the draft of that. So that's just one thought.
So
if we go to something above 20 units per acre, has anybody calculated the impact on the density rules that are currently in the PRC zoning rule, which is 13 dwelling units per acre?
I think Jennifer's doing that.
I have done some preliminary calculations, and I need to verify them with several people because it is a very complicated calculation. Seems very simple, but it is not. What I have calculated is based on the current recommendations in the land use chapter that is circulating right now. If you look at all of them, not just Reston Town Center North, the 20 units, I believe that the PRC would have 646 dwelling units before, in addition to what's being recommended in that draft chapter, before we would reach the cap. But it does need some additional study.
Okay.
So this proposal by Inova Fairfax County of 2,460 has been at the same high level that they've been pushing for several years. The current comprehensive plan, as some of you know, has no limit. It has a minimum of 1,000. So that is cockeyed planning to have only a minimum. And so there's a recognition that we need to cure that. The county, the board of directors of Reston Association has taken in the past a strong stand against a strong stand, but not in our letters to Fairfax County during the PRC discussions of 2017 to 19. So we've said that 2,400 is too high, but we've not taken a precise position exactly where it should be. Obviously, we've expressed in that same period of dialogue with Fairfax County and board-approved letters and resolutions to the county about this. We've opposed the over 3,300 additional units that are in the current plan for village centers. We've opposed the high increases at St. John's Wood and Charter Oak. But we have not yet, as a comprehensive plan task force, actually decided on what we're going to do about all those. We went through it very quickly, and we're hoping that at our next meeting on the 26th, we will have more exact figures about what is being recommended to the general task force for the densities in those different parts of Reston. Bob?
I can only speak for myself, but I think that if the density cap is the 13 dwelling units per acre is pierced, the PRC will go away completely. And whatever few protections that Reston has as a planned community will also disappear post haste in a by right state. So I can, in the strongest terms, suggest that RA should come down 4 square against overdevelopment, which 600 units is not all that. It's not all that big a buffer in getting to the 13 units per dwelling units per acre in the zoning ordinance.
Thanks, Bob. Sarah, you were next, I believe. Unless Jennifer, are you commenting on Bob or giving Bob information?
No, just one additional comment. No. So
Okay.
Sarah's next.
Sarah?
Thank you. I have a quick question, one for Jennifer and one for Larry. Jennifer, the number 600 that you had is in addition to the 1,000 or the 2,300 that is proposed?
It's the 20 units per acre, not the it's not the 1,000 units because that's what's currently in the comp plan. 20 units per acre is in the current draft, and so I use the 20 units per acre in my calculations because it's in the draft. So I'm not using past or current. I'm using current draft going forward numbers.
And the next question is for probably all three of you. Can RA take a stance that's separate from the comp plan? And if so, could we have some of our committees weigh in on this, like MTRAC on the roads, transportation, EAC? I know we have a land use group that gets together and as a collective get some advice for the board before I absolutely agree, we need to take a stance. I cannot stress enough with what Bob shared about the 13. If we pierce that number, then we can all just go home. It's over, pack up. But it will help to have some guidance from our committees on this.
So we've been seeking input from our committees for our work on the comprehensive task force. As you know, Sarah, from PRAC, and I've intimately involved MTAC in the discussions on transportation, and certainly EAC has been invited to give comments and had, I think, a strong impact on the concluding finished product on the environment. So I think we've been trying to do that. One of the issues we have is we do not yet have recommendations from the folks on working on the land use issues, exactly what densities we want in all the places. Everybody agrees we're not going to have the 3,300 additional units in village centers. there's a strong position not to increase Charter Oaks and St. John's Woods to what is permitted in the current comprehensive plan. So there are 3 things that are clear. There are a lot of things that aren't clear. And so we've been promised for our meeting on the 26th, a more detailed matrix of what densities are being proposed for incorporation in the new comprehensive plan. And so we really can't comment on it. I have done some calculations on trip generation if we had the 2,460 units. And I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's like 700 additional, or 700, 800 additional trips in the morning from the Ruston Town Center North. And in the afternoon, it was like, what, 1,600, Larry, something like that. So I mean, we've done these things, but we're working with hypotheticals right now. And until we have a more detailed matrix of what's being proposed by the subgroup working on land use for all of these individual things, we really can't ask the board. I mean, the board has already come out against some of this stuff, as I said, during the process in 2017 through 19. We did take some positions, some general positions.
My question, is it specific to this project or is it general to the comp plan? Can we take some positions specific to RTC North?
We can eventually. That's not going to be taken up for a while. Jennifer, Larry, do you want to talk about the approximate horizon within which, or the point at which the discussion of actual densities in town center, Ruston Town Center North might be discussed?
Well, I think it's going to be September. We're taking August off, the task force. We're not going to get to it on Monday. And, the draft language that's in there, I think there's going to be pushback from the staff and perhaps the supervisor about the 20 units per acre. So, I mean, again, that's just my opinion. So I think there will be a point at which this board can take a stance on that. And I think having the numbers that Jennifer's working on, which are very, very complicated, John and I have worked on those in the past, because not even the county has an exact number of where we are adding up to the total PRC of the 13 persons per acre. So I think September is going to be kind of prime time for that in terms of timing. And I think there will be an opportunity for the board to take a position.
So Larry, do you think by September when you go in, I know you've made member comments in the past at these meetings, would you have a stance on what number RA is comfortable at the September meeting, or are you saying it's not, we can do that later?
Well, what I think what we need to do is, see what I want to see, and the process is that the task force is going to put its draft together, and then it's going to go to county staff for review. And then I'm presuming, again, it's just a presumption, that the task force will then get to see all those staff comments on all the various chapters. We got some initial feedback on the Parks, Rec, and Open Space chapter from the Park Authority. Got that just recently. I got to think we're going to get the same, similar comments about the land use chapter, about, whether it's density or whatever. And I think it's only after that point that, not only the task force, but the RA board and us as representatives can say, okay, here's what's proposed. Here's what the county staff has come back and said, we like or don't like, this doesn't work, this does. And then we formulate an opinion on which the board can take a stance.
Okay. Thank you.
The dynamic tension in this is many of us have fought many years to prevent too much from being built. The other creative side of that creative tension is you need to get enough built to get any of it built. that's the creative tension, that if you don't have enough development, all of this development, all this civic spaces would have to be done with public dollars. And so that's the creative tension. We have been fighting for years, some people for decades, to prevent or reduce excessive density. But the other thing, without adequate density, we will not have the private influx of money to develop all of these spaces. So that is the creative tension that I think we're dealing with.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
A couple just tidbits of information. One is for RTCN, that area of Reston, from a board perspective, one of the things that is really important is that we have to remember that that is RA covenant land. So any dwelling units that come on or are built onto that land are required to be in RA members, unlike those TSA properties that have been in the news and discussed in the more recent past, where we're asking for them to be to come into the fold. The ones in that area would be required to be in the fold as PRC and RA covenant land. So that is a tension, I think, even among the board, of what is that balance that we want to achieve between potential new members and correct density in that area to make Reston a balanced place. In the land use chapter that is being circulated, those details are there for what the subgroup that's been working on it has been recommended. It was just released to the task force as a very first rough draft just recently. And I just want you guys to keep in mind, it's over 50 pages. So just absorbing and reading through it from a task force perspective is pretty complex. And the task force, as John and Larry have said, have asked that subgroup if they can present very cleanly without the language, the recommendations. And that's a tall order between now and Monday, but I know they're attempting to do it. But we're happy to circulate that draft to anyone on the board if you're interested in seeing it. The other 2 points I would say are things that we need to consider as a board, and if we want to take action or not take action. So for instance, Reston Town Center North, St. John's Woods might come back, but there are PRC properties that will come before the DRB. And as a board, when it's a development like that versus an individual homeowner, how active do we want to be as a board in giving our recommendations or our positions? So I do think that we could have taken an RA position, for instance, to this past DRB meeting on the conceptual plans for RTCN. And John and Larry and I have been talking about it because it's part of the task force topic as well. Do we want to be active in those types of developments as a board? And how active do we want to play in that role? And I would say the same thing for the task force. We're lucky enough to have 2 official RA representatives on the task force and have a voice there. How active do we want to be as a board in making recommendations now to give some support to our official representatives on the board, on the task force? Or do we want to wait until there's a full draft and then make comments or take positions at that point? Arguably, you could take a position now, have our representatives advocate on the task force, and we could take a different position later. But those are all decisions that I think we could make as a board. And I've seen past RA boards become very active in land use issues, and there have been other boards that haven't been as active. And so it's certainly a consideration that we should have, as a board, as to how active we really want to be.
We'll know a lot more, Sarah, after the 26th of July. I think we'll know much more about the land use issues after the 26th. And then we'll have to work like the devil during August to figure out a position.
Sorry, John, I forgot one thing.
Go ahead, Sarah.
As a PRC, Reston was founded as a PRC, and we do have land use resolutions. We don't use them super often, but we do have resolutions, and we could also take that type of action by making a resolution. And I'll just personally say I would absolutely be in favor of the board considering what's specific to PRC. What are our stances on the PRC? And as Bob was alluding to earlier, there are some potential future threats to whether the PRC land designation exists in the future. And we might want to take action on how much we want to be protecting that land use designation from an RA perspective.
Right. And actually, we did, in the context of the ZMOD, we did pass a resolution arguing that the PRC zoning district must be preserved because some had talked about it as a nuisance, which should just be absorbed into the general zoning ordinance.
So it was a resolution, not a position.
I'm pretty sure, Larry, wasn't it a resolution? Yeah.
It was, yeah. The board resolved. It was a fairly lengthy resolution that essentially became part of the testimony.
So we've taken that. That is a very fundamental thing, and we have heard some Fairfax County officials in recent years say, "Why not just get rid of the PRC ordinance?" And we have argued strenuously against that. Jennifer?
Can I ask to have it added to our website then?
Larry, could you see to that?
Sorry, Larry, I don't see it up here.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it was just a position at the time and not a resolution. Sorry about that.
It is a resolution, but it wasn't put in the resolution book.
Right. It was basically a resolution to take a position. I know that kind of confounding words, but.
So, I mean, it's stated a real position for vis-a-vis the preservation and indeed the strengthening of the PRC ordinance. We'll find it and send it to you, but it was a real resolution in resolution form. Any other questions about this? This has been a very good and lively conversation. Thank you. Anything else?
One last point. Again, just sharing my views. It was as DRB liaison sitting through that meeting. I wished we had a heads up on the position RA was taking or RA comments that were being shared. So in the future, I know we didn't have time to have a discussion in open meeting, but Larry, it would be helpful if you can even just share it as an email with us, like an FYI, that this is what we're going to be commenting as RA. And I still think we should take a stance and not wait till the end, but looks like most of the board wants to wait and see. But I'm like Jennifer said, we can take a stance and then change our mind later. That's fine with new information, but not having a stance kind of worries me that we're leaving it open. So
yeah,
that's just me.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you all. The next item is We're skipping item L. The next thing is the Board Governance Committee work plan. So, and I'm the presenter on that too. This is more John than you bargained for.
That's double duty tonight.
Let me find this.
Triple duty, actually.
So, as we said in the background information sent in the board package, though it's not required to do so this year, the BGC wanted to. We wanted to organize ourselves around a list of priorities we thought were important, but we wanted to get the board's feedback on that because we did not want to spend our time doing things that the board did not think was worthwhile. So what you were given were two documents kind of put as one. One was the list of topics, and the topics were either in black or in green. The green ones were the ones that we thought warranted our investment of time as BGC members. The other document was a rough calendaring of those items. Now, what we are asking you tonight is to tell us which of those green lettered items you think are worthwhile. And without getting into, please, let's not get into calendaring, but at least indicating those that you would like to see done sooner, before other ones, kind of a general sense of priority order. Does that make sense? So we're not asking for a vote. Although there's nothing prohibiting that, but if we could get a kind of a consensus of what are the items in green that you would like us to spend our time on behalf of the Restaurant Association. Make sense? Sarah.
Can I ask that we share it? Christina, can you share the document for us on the screen, please? I can have a couple of them, so it'll help to have it on screen.
So as a note, some of these things have already been done. Some of them have been almost done. So go ahead. Sarah, did you want to?
Yes, if we keep going down, I think it was item 23. Actually, stop. Go back up, please. Just a little bit to 13. The board training, I'm assuming, Jennifer, this is what you were referring to when I was asking about the sensitivity training or workshop. I would like for that to be a separate item and not, yes, we need to have all of the others, but the diversity and harassment, if that could be a little more urgency and addressed at the earliest, would be helpful.
May I respond to that, Sarah, so that my old mind doesn't forget to respond to it? In fact,
sure.
Tim Dowling has requested and that request has been enacted, that the discussion of diversity training be on the BGC's agenda for its special meeting on August the 5th. So we are making it a priority issue.
Fantastic, thank you. And if we can go down, I think it's item 23. I just had a question about it. Can I get the understanding of why or what we're trying to achieve with this? Again, serving on Bach, I was surprised to see Bach on your agenda. since we did not make the request and I don't remember the board making the request. So I just want to understand what the goal is here or what the need was. Thank you.
We've been talking about various confusing things that board members have mentioned among ourselves have caused confusion. Before I go back to that one, Sarah, number 23, we've talked about, I want to get it here. Number 4 talks about a joint review of Resolution 5, board staff relationships, Resolution 4, board communications with members, and Resolution 11, association spokespersons. So I've spoken with a number of my fellow board members about this. You know, how do we deal with, how does the board deal with staff? How do we get answers from staff and stuff like that? So that's one set of issues. The other set of issues that we've been aware of and spoken with a number of the folks on the BOC itself is so for example, in the BOC, in Resolution 4, the committee's Resolution 4 board committees, under the BOC, there have been a number of conversations on setting the example, setting the agenda for board meetings. Like all it says very tersely in section 2A there is the board agenda development. Assists the board, so BOC assists the board president in drafting regular board meeting agendas. And there's been discussion, you know, should BOC be approving the proposals, the subject matter, or does it approve the readiness of it? But that resolution is very general on that, and we believe has caused some confusion. Does that warrant the BGC working on that? Obviously, in close collaboration with BOC members to see if we can clarify that thing about setting agendas. Similarly, there's been confusion on BOC's recommendation of candidates for committees. So they make recommendations to the board. What is the degree of presumption of correctness that the board should give to the BOC's recommendations? So should that section, should that be further clarified? So basically, Clara, we're wondering whether or not that committee resolution 4 is clear enough, because it seems that there have been some confusion and disagreements about those 2 points, for example. Does that make any sense?
So, no, because you said you've had multiple conversations, and I'm on BOC, so I wasn't part of those. I don't know if Bob or Bob's the only other BOC member here. If you were part of those discussions, Bob. Nope. For BOC, we have no confusion as far as I can say. I think we have clarity on what our role is, what the resolution says, what our expectations. So I'm miffed that this is on BGC now. You know, further restricting a board committee. So I'm just trying to figure out, where did this originate? If it's not from BOC, I don't think BOC members asked for this. Yes, there has been contention when it comes to BOC recommendations. Specific individuals and personalities have been an issue. But overall, I think BOC is clear what our role is. Yes, there's our committees are expected to have their documents ready to go for presentation. Staff don't necessarily have theirs in the packet, but we've approved it as long as, you know, it's gone well. So I don't want this to turn into an effort to limit other committees role. And that's what worries me, that BGC is coming after this. And we all know the the candidate recommendations can always be taken out of the consent calendar, as we've seen in the past. So if that's the only reason for this, I just feel it's not warranted. And as BAC, I'm happy to bring this up with Karen at the next BAC meeting and see if the other members of BAC feel the same way. But at least I can speak for myself. I don't think it's needed. I don't know, Bob, how you feel, but I'm sure we can ask the other BAC members. We didn't come to you for direction. I don't think we're asking for direction. So I'm kind of surprised that we're going down this road.
So just to clarify, pardon me, Sarah, just to clarify, I did not have discussions with BAC. I've had discussions with BAC members about this, individual BAC members. And
not the two of us here.
Say that again?
They're not the two of us here, not Bob and not me.
My memory is different on that.
Okay.
Yeah, my memory is different on that. Anyway, it is BGC's responsibility to, we're supposed to make sure that we work effectively as a board. And we're also charged with making sure that resolutions are up to date.
That's the piece that is really offensive, that you're saying a committee that I'm part of is not functioning effectively or we're making mistakes. So that's the part I'm taking offense with here.
I'm not talking, in this case, I was talking about general obligations that BGC has vis-a-vis the rest of Reston organization. Indeed, what I was talking about was not inefficiencies, but clarity. So one thing is efficiencies, or we're working as efficiently as possible. The second is, are our resolutions up to date and clear? So we've changed our conflict of interest resolution and so forth. So I have had, my memory is that I've had a number of conversations with BAC members about these two things and wondered whether or not part of the problem was clarity of the language of the resolution. We're not talking about efficiency here. I probably shouldn't even mention that. That's one of our general responsibilities. But I'm talking about our responsibility to make sure we have the best, clearest resolutions that we can have. And if so, that's why it's there. We're not forcing anything on anyone. We're listing this as something we thought might be a worthwhile topic. Obviously, we would not take it up without the board's permission, and we'd be fools to take it up without BAC's consensus. So, but this is not an attack on, it is really saying, are there problems in the language of the resolution?
Thank you. I'll bring it up at our next BAC meeting. And
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
I'm trying to, I think there was I don't think this one was general, like we're trying to update general things. There was something, and I'm just trying to put my finger on what it was. I feel like I'm trying to remember which of us even brought this one up. Was Tim, was this the one that you brought up at the last, it's towards the end of the list, so I'm trying to think, was this the one that you had brought up at the last meeting?
I brought up a portion of it, and then
and then we added. So can you remind us what it was? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was distracted, Jennifer. What number are you referring to?
23. We're trying to kind of get to the bottom of it. Is 23 a broad, we're just checking up on things, or was it more there was a concern and that's why it ended up on our list?
Yeah.
The issue that I raised is actually captured better in the box to the far right. The concern that I raised had to do with departures from the agenda. motions that are made that are unattached to any agenda item. And then as the committee discussed that, Chairman Mooney expanded the scope to include a review of resolutions to ensure clarity. And I just want to reiterate what Vice President Mooney said before. We're not asking to debate these issues tonight. We're asking for a sense of priority from the board. Obviously, some board members feel that this is extraordinarily low priority, perhaps shouldn't even be on the work plan. And we haven't even had a conversation about this. One possible outcome is that BGC will look at this and recommend that no action be taken. We haven't even had a conversation about the merits. We've just added this as an item to the work plan to be thought about and discussed. And I hope that no one is angry that we want to have a discussion about a perceived problem in the board's operations.
The issue I have is the perceived problem. Like those of the committee don't have a perceived problem. So it's really worrisome that it's coming from, this is like, I don't know, like we're being evaluated by BGC now that we're not doing our job right. But again, like I said, we'll bring it up with Bach at the next Bach meeting. Again, at Bach, I don't think we veer off from agenda.
No, that wasn't my point.
You're
It
talking
wasn't
about
that Bach was veering off of an agenda. It's that during our board meetings, we veer off of agendas.
Yeah, so it had to do with the addition of agenda items. I think that is what Resolution 7 is about. And it was probably misleading, Sarah, that we didn't put, it wasn't about Board Operations Committee. It was about the section on the Board Operations Committee in Committee Resolution 4. So it might have been clearer if we had said Resolution 7 and Resolution 4. This was not a critique of the Bach operations. It was about the question of the clarity of Resolution 4, which deals about Bach's responsibilities.
at full board meetings. Go ahead, Bob. I'm out of questions.
We can have a discussion about this. This could go on for a long time. My observation is this is an incredibly ambitious work plan for any of the committees that meets once a month and is populated by volunteers. It's a lot to take on. It's something that I think is a challenge for everybody. And as much as I would like for the meetings to run exceedingly smoothly and efficiently, there are issues that come up that beg at least discussion and decisions on from time to time. And I don't think it is, it can get a little, meetings have been a bit chaotic and disruptive, but I think in the end, you know, we've done the best job we can. So I appreciate the clarification on the points about on 23. Just one minor issue, and that's on 15, the annual review of committees. The annual review of committees only applies to advisory committees, not board committees, because they have a 1-year life. Each has a 1-year life, which is determined each year whether the committee will continue on. And the one committee that I can think of that in past years was eliminated was the 55 plus. So I think we should be a little bit more precise there. But I think it's incredibly ambitious given you've got 5 meetings between now and the end of the year. But go forth and do good things.
Is there anything that you, Jennifer, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that to me, number 6 and number 4 on the list are priorities. And number 1 that is on the list is something that we have been actively working on. But if we are going to make that change, it's got to be done soon, or we just need to leave it on the side.
Yeah.
But as BGC has discussed, and it's part of why we're having this extra August meeting, is to try to get number 1 complete. But if we fail to get number 1 complete, then we're getting pretty late in the year to be changing a CEO performance review.
Yeah, just by way of clarification, what we were all dissatisfied, the BGC were all dissatisfied at the performance evaluation instrument we've been using for the CEO. It's not useless, but it's certainly not what we would want it to be. So Hank, based on his experience working with the Harvard School of Government, and of course he took there on performance reviews, helped us begin developing a behaviorally or performance anchored review where you just don't use numbers, but you actually use identifiable gradations of performance or behavior. So that's what we're doing, but we are using the goals that we gave Hank, his performance goals at the beginning of this year. So we're not making those up. We're just trying to refine the instruments for measuring attainment of those goals. Okay, just so you know that. We're not changing goals mid-year.
We can discuss this at another time, but I'll just leave it.
Okay. And obviously it will be brought to the board. So is there anything that the board would like to say? This is very ambitious, probably too ambitious, but we would really like you to do X. That's the point of this exercise tonight.
Since I haven't had a chance to review the list from that perspective, I will provide you with my thoughts, John, and everyone else. I'll blast out to all the board members my thoughts on these issues.
Super. Thank you, Bob. Okay. Any further discussion on this point? We've certainly heard concerns, and we look forward to any specific recommendations you have for us. Okay. If there's not an objection, we'll move off this item and move to the next item, which is, since we're not doing N, item O, capital project 5-year plan. Larry?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to do a brief intro, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chris. So for those of you who have attended a number of fiscal committee meetings, there have been some discussion about the capital projects forecasting and planning, and that we don't actually have a capital improvements plan. We work on a rolling 10-year average for a contribution and so forth. And actually, when Garrett Skinner was employed here, I don't know, about 3.5 or so years ago, he started drafting a 5-year capital improvements plan. And after the discussion, I think it was 2 or 3 months ago at the fiscal committee meeting, Chris and I sat down and said, this is going to come. So Chris started working on it. So I give pretty much all the credit for all the detail to Chris because he's fully immersed in this on a day-to-day basis. And what you have in front of you, and I know we sent it out late because this has been a very moving target. It's really developed very quickly. Hopefully you've had a chance to at least glance at it. It's over 50 pages, has a lot of detail. And what we want to do is just get it in front of you. And Chris is going to kind of walk through the really high level, summary of it and kind of what it includes and the basis for it. But really, this is kind of a precursor to our discussion in August, where we're going to talk about triple RF, because I think this is going to be very germane to that. So this is just to introduce the 5-year capital improvements plan to you, and then you'll have ample time, about 27 days, I think, before that August meeting to develop questions and so forth. But we ask if you have questions before that meeting, please shoot them to Chris and I so we can, try to answer those so that the discussion in August is more meaningful. And again, this is a draft. It is an absolute work in progress. And that's why we have requested it not be shared publicly yet, because we want to get your input. We want to get the fiscal committee's input. And then, really hopefully in August, we'll have a much better plan, that has had the value of a number of different people's perspectives and so forth. So that's what Chris is going to walk you through tonight, just kind of a high level. And because I don't think you want us to go through, 50 plus pages of material at this point. So Chris, get away.
Larry, before you begin,
Sure.
Can I ask, can I share it with the fiscal committee members, or would you prefer us not do that?
Are we gonna, well, we're not on the agenda for the fiscal committee meeting in early August, correct?
Right, but we are going to have that joint meeting on the 19th.
19th, right.
And you've already stated, because it's 50 pages long, I'm just trying to think about this, the time commitment, and the more time people have to read and cogitate what's in here, the better responses I think you get.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that, Bob. I think with the understanding that this is, for now, to the extent that we can keep it that way, an internal document before we get comments from both fiscal and the board members, because I think that's really important that it doesn't get, released, in this very draft fashion, because it's a very new document.
Right, pre-decisional documents.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Chris.
John, I have, yeah. I'm sorry, Chris, that I did not get to look at the document that you sent out today. Looking forward to your presentation. One is, I do think that you guys are on the fiscal committee agenda, not that there's been an official one adopted yet, but we do have in our notes from previous meeting that triple RF capital stuff would be at their August meeting. So just want to give you guys a heads up that I do think it will be there. And then the second piece is I totally understand why you want to keep this in draft format, but I just want to make sure, because it was sent to the whole board, that from a legal perspective, we're doing the right thing. So if Tony did Tony receive the email, or does he know? I don't know if he's seen it or could even comment at this point if it has to be public or not.
He's on the distribution list.
He is. Okay.
So the board, yes.
Tony, it was sent to, almost at 4 o'clock today. I don't know if you've had a chance to lay eyes on it, but I thought that our rules were when something was sent to the full board, it had to be made public. And I just want to make sure we're in compliance.
No, the board, when something is sent to the board, it is not required to be made public. If something is part of the agenda packet, it's required to be.
Right, which I thought this was.
I'll have
No.
to Chris as to whether this is a presentation. Oftentimes, staff will just put on a presentation, and then if requested by members, hey, I'd like to get a copy of those slides, we provide them with a copy of those slides. So
yeah, the portions of the plan are included within this presentation, but just as an example for the time being, for just initial discussion's sake, and to kind of walk through the framework of it, since it is such a new document and it's still evolving. I've got meetings with different department directors tomorrow, in fact, to kind of go through some more detail, because many of the SLT just saw it today at the same time that you did, in its current form. So it's still very much evolving, and then at some point, yes, there will be a public version made available, or because of the detail that is going to be in some of this specific project detail, typically our practice is not to release line by line project detail to would-be contractors that would then have insider information as to exactly what we are budgeting. But there will be an alternate version perhaps that I'm still trying to figure out how to do, where maybe the next budget year will be redacted, but the ones out beyond that won't be, because there'll be likely changes as the document evolves from year to year to year, and budgets are updated or corrected perhaps. So it's still something that we're trying to figure that out, and that's why we're kind of being careful about its public distribution at this stage because of that. So with that, if there's any other questions, the capital improvement plan that we have in development, like Larry said, so this is a comprehensive document. It is going to cover both major and minor projects. So major projects are anything over $500,000. And this is for the next 5-year period. So instead of looking at things from such a large 10-year period, or just as narrow as 1 or 2 years, we're trying to find that Goldilocks location of just 5 years, which is most likely going to be the most accurate time frame that we can get on project lists, as well as their projected budgets. So it's a planning document, and we move from each year. So each year will get updated, another year will be added. We'll just keep moving its way forward. It's built, I built it very much similar to a lot of other capital improvement plans in the area, from Town of Leesburg, Town of Herndon, even Columbia Association, a few other ones. I kind of use that, as well as some of the Garrett's framework that he had kind of started back in 2018 to kind of put this all together. So it includes also, some background information on strategic plan of RA, how we currently fund our projects, and the forecast summaries, and then provides a synopsis of all of the major projects that we have currently forecasted. This kind of runs, this is how it's looking like, and you got a full version of it, and you can tell even from these slides to the ones I sent you, it's already been updated and a few things have been changed. But the general contents you have, like I said, the strategic plan, what the capital improvement plan is, what is it supposed to do, what it does and doesn't do, how we currently fund our projects, what are the major projects, and then outlines all the different capital spending by chapter, basically, which is from, pedestrian trails, boat docks, all the way down to tennis courts, tot lots, vehicles. And at the end, I also provide some kind of reference images and some kind of, background information, perhaps from a visual standpoint, to understand, when I say, what does reflective cracking look like, or what does a chip out look like? That's what I'm trying to describe. So in here you can see, it outlines everything from, what are the CAR funding sources? And then what is the current 10-year average looking like? Because that is still a fundamental aspect of how we fund our capital projects, is the 10-year average. So that is still a key to this. But like I said, this plan really focuses just on the first 5 years of that 10-year model. And then we also go through, how project life cycles are done on major projects. So it outlines and reiterates how those are done from its project initiation all the way through its evaluation stage. And then for the major projects, it goes through a summary of kind of the background of the project, the history of the facility, why the work needs to be done, the things that it needs to be done to it, and some assumptions of what could be done, and then an estimate of what that looks like. And of course, before any of these major projects are actually done, would require multiple series of board approval to even get it initiated. Then we'd have, community input sessions and development. We'd be working our way through the capital project lifecycle on each one of these. And then, here's a snippet on the left page, which just kind of goes, this is what a chapter would look like in the capital spending. And this is for pedestrian trails. It just shows you what our annual budget is for pedestrian trails, being that this is a kind of a broad allowance that isn't really specific to any one particular trail section. It's not something that's particularly sensitive, so I included it in here for the time being. And then, also there's a 5-year summary, which then just outlines everything, including CARF items, which again are separate and be approved on an item by item basis. And at the end are just some reference images. So you have some, interesting pictures of Lake Throw when it was first constructed back in the early 80s, and another one in 95, which I found and kind of doing a record search. So it's amazing to see how much that facility has changed over time, showing what a chip out looks like. That's over at Hunter's Woods Pool, and how, those types of projects are really kind of impacting a lot of the capital projects moving forward, because it is out of the ordinary in some instances, because you only do chip outs, after every third plaster coat. So they don't come up until about every, 20 something years. And so these types of projects are coming up. They're impacting our budgets significantly, because it is about double the cost to chip out and then replaster pool versus just plastering it again. So any questions or thoughts or comments on that part before I maybe do a quick update regarding Lake Throw Pool, since I haven't had an opportunity to do that for a month?
I just want to express my astonishment and admiration, Chris especially, but also Larry, for the massive undertaking of this CIP document. It is a wonderful contribution to RA, and I've not had a chance to study it, but it looks very impressive. Thank you.
John, whatever kudos you throw my way, I'm going to toss over into Chris's bucket.
Okay.
Thank you.
John, this is Jennifer.
Yes, Jennifer.
Sorry, thank you. I agree completely with John. Thank you so much for the ability to really comb through these details and have weeks to be able to do it versus 4 or 5 days at most before a meeting. So that is fabulous. And I apologize in advance for questions that I will send, but you said we could send questions. So
but we're going to limit them to 5 per person.
I'm going to have to ask fellow board members then to take their list. The only, and I haven't, like I said, I haven't had a chance to really absorb it, but I'm wondering if towards the beginning of the document, because you go through the life cycle, if earlier this week, earlier this year, the board was looking at those rec working group, the flow charts that the rec working group had made. And I wonder if something like that might be useful for the inclusion in our 5-year plan as an item. I know that the board did not take official approval on that, but I'm kind of saying it as a twofold. One, because I think it might be appropriate in the document, and two, that if we put it in there, then maybe we will take action on said workflow.
Sure.
But thanks again for putting this together.
Any other questions of Chris or Larry? Then we will leave you guys free with our then we move to Lake Thoreau Pool now. Okay.
Well, this is kind of just a tag on, just because I wanted to give I'm trying to give these updates on a monthly basis to keep everyone informed and how we're progressing on this, since it is a major project. So, like I said, we're still currently in the estimation procurement phase of the project life cycle. We are moving closer to the KDP 3 point, which would be in September. So right now we are looking at about a 4 month. So we were a 3 month, now we're about 4 months, I think, just because we took a bit more time to find more viable candidates for bidding on the project. There just wasn't a lot of interest at first, so it took us a bit more time to find some more. So we're up to 4 people. We're actually going to be conducting a site visit tomorrow at Lake Throw with the contractors to start walking through some of the plan sets, the facility in itself. There's an opportunity to kind of receive some of the first rounds of questions from these contractors to then respond back to. But an exciting part of that was that earlier this week, we obtained the final DRB approval on the project. So we are now through that major milestone of the project. So that's been settled. The 80% design drawings are now completed. We actually got the site plan approved by the county in only 1 round, which is kind of unbelievable. And it really kind of sort of shows just how great our design team has been from Kimley Horn and LeMay Erickson, all of them, that they were able to file and get the site plan reviewed in just 1 try, which I've never heard of. And I don't know if many others have, especially with Fairfax County. So big kudos to them. The RFP has been released for the project. So that's been out. We'll be getting back our proposals here about this time next month, approximately. So at that point, we'll be reviewing them and then being able to establish a final estimate for the project. So like I said, we're going to be doing a joint bidder visit tomorrow on site. We're going to be dealing with RFP questions and answers, and then proposal submissions coming up in the next month or so. So just as if you didn't see the DRB meeting, this is the final approved design. So that's what the new face of Lake Throw is going to look like. The site plan, you can see there to the left, has all the different types of elements that are going to be in play. And this is, another interesting 3D model they did of the corner of that overlook area and the rampway leading down towards the water. So any questions? Jennifer?
Thank you for showing this, and I know that you'll put it up on this small presentation up on the website for all those who frequent your Lake Throw website page dedicated to that. I have one quick question, and when you were out, Chris, Larry had shared with us that we had gone out to contractors and we weren't getting great feedback, that we were going to get some good bids, and so we expanded it. And so just curious, how are we doing? Do you guys feel comfortable? Are we going to get enough bids? I want to say, Larry, didn't you say like 21 different people or companies you guys were trying to go to get a contractor? So just curious how you feel about that.
Yeah, so the original invite list, I think, was either 10 or 11 general contractors that either Kimley Horn or RA had experience with. So it was kind of I would say a respectful list of people that we know had done good work for either that Kimley Horn had worked with or us. And we are, at this point, we have 4 solid contractors who we have vetted. So in our initial round, we thought we'd only end up with 2. And, for a project of this size, that's not going to cut it. So we feel pretty comfortable with 4. They're all, local firms that have done like work. Chris and Ron and Jeff went out and visited some of the recent work that each of them had done, to kind of, and it was, they were not joined by the contractor. It was, just the property owner, so they could really look and inspect the work that had been done. So I feel pretty comfortable that we'll get some good numbers. Well, I don't want to say good numbers. I'll say that we're going to get 4 respectable bids. I can't tell you where the numbers are going to come in.
No, that's great news, because I was fearing that we might not get enough. So thank you for expanding the search. I'm glad that we feel like we might get more than the 3 that we require. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. So I think at this point, we need a motion to go into executive session on personnel matters. Is that correct, Tony?
I motion to move into executive session personnel matters.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we go into executive session. myself. There we go. Okay, we are out of executive session, and I would entertain this motion. Move that the Reston Association Board of Directors certifies to the best of each member's knowledge that only those matters appropriate for executive session related to personnel matters were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during executive session.
So move.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tim. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? You're opposing, Aaron?
Yes.
Okay. Any abstaining? Okay. Now I'm going to ask our council to, in order, articulate, frame a motion, for which I'll ask a motion, an actual motion and second, two motions pertaining to what we did in executive session. Tony, will you give us the language for the first motion?
Mr. Chair, I would offer the following motion. Move to ratify and approve the decision reached in executive session to appoint Julie Bitzer as the chair for PrAC and John Farrell as the vice chair for PrAC.
Would someone make that motion?
So move.
Thank you, Bob. Sarah, you're the second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. Tony, would you give us a language for the second motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd offer the following motion. Move to approve the remaining volunteer appointments as presented to this board by Bach.
Okay. Which have been published in our board packet for the public to see. Would someone make that motion? Thank you, Sarah. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. I would ask the indulgence of the board to, we're now at new business, and I would ask you to indulge me at to do as requested by President Anton, who could not be here. And she wanted just a quick read of the board on a matter that we need to resolve before September. And so if the board agrees to allow this, Karen wanted me to test the waters with the board on its interest on moving to in-person or hybrid, which means both in-person and virtual board meetings beginning in September. Again, this is not a vote, just an initial reaction from the board so that we can begin to discuss with the CEO how to effect it, although some of those discussions have happened. Indeed, Hank has indicated that we do have the staff capacity to do both the in-person and hybrid at no additional cost to RA. He did raise with me some concerns about beginning in September, or committing to beginning in September, due to the spread of COVID Delta variant, which he has information has led some rather large corporations to delay full in-person staffing of offices. So is it agreeable to have a very quick indication of our degree of interest in trying to begin to move forward on having in-person or hybrid meetings in September?
You want just a quick poll of the board members?
Yeah, we're not, this is not a vote, but just how many favor that, assuming that the Delta variant does not impede it.
Right. Yes.
Who are opposed to it?
And only in September, because my daughter turns 12 in October and will be able to get the shot. So at the moment, she's the only one not vaccinated in my house. So
Okay.
September is an
Okay.
iffy.
If we went to a hybrid meeting, you could attend by Zoom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Jennifer, how about you?
Skylar, unfortunately, won't be 12 anytime soon, so I'm stuck with this for a while. I've attended some in-person meetings with fiscal, and they've been small enough, and the firm has been large enough that I've been comfortable. And so I don't know what September will bring. As an HR person, I tell my staff that all the time. We might want to vote on this and change our mind later. Right now, I'm fine with hybrid meetings.
Okay.
You know, what the news will bring in September, you know, happy to vote again.
We are not tonight voting to do.
Right. No, I didn't mean voting, but share my opinion again.
Aaron, I saw you nodding yes. Is that accurate? Okay. Mike, I did not see your indication.
Yeah. Make sure I'm off. Am I on mute?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, got it. That's the opposite problem. Anyway, I am in favor of keeping the hybrid model myself. Yep.
Okay. Okay, which would give us the option to participate by Zoom. Yep.
Right. I'd like to be able to do both. As a single parent, it's great to have the hybrid, you know, so I like both. Yep.
Fair enough. And Tim, I did not recognize what you were saying.
I would favor live meetings or hybrid, either one.
Okay. All right. And Bob, I heard you open to this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. As Jennifer said before, fiscal's now had 3 meetings, and it's worked out. It's worked out, except the first one was acceptable, and the second 2 have been worked out very well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all. Yes. Yes, Jennifer.
I just wanted to check on a motion that we had passed previously about the members' ability to be able to record virtual meetings. And we haven't been able to record any since we passed the motion. So I just wanted to check with staff on how we're feeling about implementing that.
Okay, I'll ask Hank to address that. Hank?
If I heard you correctly, Jennifer, I think the question was, are we prepared to record all committee meetings? And as I told you before, or shared with you before, that would require, because if we share that the hybrid meetings are, that they are indeed hybrid, that if we have a technical glitch, we have to make sure that we have an IT person on staff or the meeting and fix it or the meeting ends. So as I shared with you before, recording and having staffing all committee meetings beyond what we are currently doing would cost us a substantial amount of money. If the board wants us to do it, we'll do it. But right now it's not in this year's budget to do it. But if you need us to do it, we'll make it work.
And I'm sorry if I was unclear. I love that idea, and I'm pro it, and I get what your feelings are on about it. But we did pass a motion to allow the members to be able to record the sessions themselves, just like literally have the record button accessible to them. And that's the one I was trying to check on the status of.
Well, if the members are trying to record on their own, how does staff have, I don't understand how staff would play a role in that.
You
Are
have
we
to
preventing them from doing that?
Correct.
We enable it on Zoom.
We're disabling it from a staff perspective when we set up the meeting.
Then we'll make it so that they can record it if you voted to make that happen.
One of the controls that is available is anybody recording a meeting must request permission to do so. So you know who is recording the session.
And then we'll make that happen.
Well, let's wait a bit here. Tim, you had a question or a comment?
My recollection of the motion is very different. There was nothing in the motion that required staff to tinker with Zoom controls. That was part of the discussion, but that was not in the motion.
I can read it if that's helpful for you, Tim. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I'm not sure what you're reading from.
The minutes that we just approved tonight, that's in this tonight's board packet.
Okay, please, that would be helpful.
It says Director Juszczyk, seconded by Director Sarah, which I'm not going to say your name, sorry, Sarah, move to direct staff to allow members to be able to record virtual meetings if it's technically possible without any additional costs.
That's exactly my point. I view Reston Association as in full compliance with that instruction as of today. There is nothing preventing a member from recording our meetings. And I believe that, I don't want to put words in his mouth, I believe that Director Webb made this distinction during the discussion as well. Members can record our meetings. There was nothing in the motion about tinkering with Zoom software.
Okay, then I move to direct staff to allow members to be able to record virtual meetings via the Zoom platform. Give me a second. Via staff allowing the options on RA Zoom platform to push the record button.
Is this part of our agenda for tonight?
I'll second.
Yeah, Tim, I would say that we are in that general area because of our agreement to discuss in-person and hybrid. The general area, where obviously the specific topic is not. Is this a motion that's in order, Tony?
Aren't we in new business?
We're in new business. Give me a second. You're in the gray. I mean, is it technically new business? It's stemming from an old topic. Is it directly related to hybrid meetings? You're very much in the gray. It's not directly a no, but it's certainly not 100%, flowing from our agenda and blessed by Bach and as a discussion item, et cetera, et cetera. So you're really in that gray area where you're stretching the bounds of our resolutions.
Okay, so I'm going to allow discussion and vote on this, but I guess my question is, so your motion, Jennifer, takes into consideration the avoidance of additional cost.
Correct. And I'm happy to add that to the end of the motion.
Yep.
Like I did last time.
Right. This is from my abysmal ignorance of IT stuff. Is there anything, would RAs enabling individual members to do this recording in any way compromise any security of our system or integrity of our Zoom system?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I seem to recall, this is not a legal area, but just total candor with the board. I seem to recall the director of IT stating that in order to do that, individuals would need to be made co-hosts. And so I don't know, I barely know how to run my iPhone. but I seem to recall that that statement was made.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy to amend the motion to say if it's technically possible without harming our cybersecurity, like I did the last time.
Any other questions or comments? Aaron?
So I'll just reiterate what I said last time, is that what shows up on the screen of my computer, I can record. If I provide the right, I can pick up my iPhone and I can record the meeting with my iPhone. There's nothing that will prevent me from doing that. And that satisfies the requirement to allow recording of open meetings. Adjusting our configuration of Zoom is, in my mind, equivalent to providing participants with video equipment as they walk into our in-person meetings. Putting the extra provisos on that if feasible and if it doesn't limit our cybersecurity, there's a reason that staff hasn't done it. This motion is going to have no effect because we'll be back here next month and Zoom will be configured the same way. And that button won't be turned on because of one of these loopholes that you put into the motion. So if people want to record it, they can get equipment and they can record it. They can get additional software to install on their machine if they want to record it that way. Or like I say, $9 on Amazon and you have a iPhone mount and you have your iPhone record the meeting. And then these meetings we post on YouTube, and there's a YouTube video downloader plugin, or 1,000 of them that you can do and then pull the meeting off of YouTube. I don't think we need to have staff take any action.
Hank, go ahead, Jennifer.
I will express my frustration because I think that it was very clear the intention of my motion last meeting, and I think that it's being ignored because of the semantics of the motion. And I don't think that that is right, and I would not attempt to do that to another board member. Second of all, I have been on the member side more recently than most of you. And the last time that I wanted to have a meeting that I was not able to attend, I had to do a member rights request because the meetings are being recorded by our staff. They're already recorded. We're choosing not to share them. I understand Hank's concern about maybe that will cost money, but if a member submits a member rights request right now, we have to honor that member rights request because it was honored when I was on the member side. Why are we afraid for our members to have access to public information? That's the purpose of these open meeting rights. So I'm disheartened by us attempting to block what is literally a checkbox in the Zoom account.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Kim, you wanted to say something?
Just very briefly, words matter. Words matter, especially when we're talking about motions. And when a motion is framed in a particular way, that's what each of us should be focusing on when we decide whether or not to vote in favor of or against the motion or to abstain. The 15 minutes of discussion is very illuminating and very important to reasoned decision-making, but the words of the motion matter. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Okay. Are you talking, when you talk about words matter, are you talking about the previous motion or Jennifer's motion tonight?
The comment that somehow the intention of a previous motion was being thwarted because of semantics.
Okay. So you're referring to the previous motion. Hank, do you have has staff analyzed this issue since the last board meeting when this was, when this motion was passed?
I think you're all aware that the IT director resigned, and we've been dealing with that, to be perfectly honest with you. So I don't have any new information other than if the board passes this, and it has passed it, we will look at how we can do it on our side. But I think Aaron is perfectly correct. If someone wants to record the meeting, they can do it with their own iPhone. I am very concerned right now, without having an IT director, about security, about people getting access to our Zoom and during a meeting and disrupting it like they've done once before. But we will do what the board directs us to do, and gladly do so.
Any other comments or questions? Bob?
As Jennifer's motion mentioned, if it is technically possible and at no additional cost, I don't disagree with Aaron or Tim, but if we would check into it and be assured, I don't see that we're any worse off. I like Aaron, have the capability to, I've got the software to record the meeting as well. So maybe this will all become a moot issue if we go back to in-person meetings.
Yeah, I mean, Jennifer's motion, yes.
May I attempt to offer a compromise? Because there's a lot of speculation going on right now. What if there was a motion to direct the CEO to direct the director of IT to prepare a memorandum as to the pros and cons of allowing members access and the ability to be able to record directly from Zoom, and to present such to the board within a week? I think it would be a fairly simple opinion email. Here are the pros, here are the cons. And then the board can make a decision, if not via unanimous written consent, at its next board meeting. And then at least you're making a decision from a point of information. I really feel like there's a lot of speculation going on right now, and you can't come up with a very good motion when you don't know exactly what you want.
I favor that because I wallow in IT ignorance. So I would like to be enlightened before voting. And I guess the 3 points that I want to be enlightened on are cost, technical feasibility, and also safeguarding our IT security. Those are my three main concerns. So I would benefit from having the motion that Tony made. If all of those three things are done, even though we're not obliged to do it, I would definitely tend to want to give that benefit to our members, even if we're not required to, if those three conditions can be met. But I hate to, I would, if we voted on Jennifer's version tonight, because I don't know those things, I would have to abstain. Tim?
I like Tony's compromise also. I think it's imprudent for the board to be going further than that without IT expertise at this meeting, which is one of the reasons why I raised the concern about whether this was even on the agenda. But if there's no downside to this, I would fully support it. I am all in favor of transparency and openness and member participation. If there's no downside, I will fully support it. Thank you.
I'm happy to withdraw my motion. Sarah would have to withdraw her second in order to do that, and happy to go with Tony's motion Thank you for the suggestion, Tony. But again, I really wish you would have brought this up a month ago when we were talking about it, because we're now a month later. But thank you for considering. Sarah, your thoughts?
I'm okay to withdraw, but my thing is it's just going to be delayed. Are we going to get the report from Clara before she leaves? Tony, is that your suggestion?
Well, that's Hank seems to believe that's possible.
I will ask Claire to do it before she leaves. Yes.
Okay. Just so at least by the time we get together in September, it'll be nice to have this result. Sure, Jennifer, I'm happy to withdraw the second.
Then I will motion using Tony's language that he provided a minute ago and ask for a second.
And Jennifer, are you okay including my 3 concerns of technical feasibility, financial neutrality, and cybersecurity?
Correct.
Okay.
Happy to add those.
Okay. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Aaron.
Can you restate the motion so I'm clear on what I'm voting on?
Move to direct the CEO to direct the Director of IT to prepare a memorandum for the board by July 30th, 2021, COB, to outline the pros and cons, technical feasibility, costs, and security risks for allowing members to directly record from the association's Zoom IT platform.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that do it for you, Aaron? Okay, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. So, dear friends, I believe a motion, unless there's any other new business, I believe a motion to adjourn is in order. Sarah, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob, thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you for the hard work tonight, and a peaceful night.
And thank
Thank
you,
you,
for
John.
burying another defeat.
Bye now.
Good night.